Hi, everyone. This is Jason Burack of Wall Street for Main Street. Welcome back to another Wall Street for Main Street podcast interview. Today's special guest is a returning guest. I've actually interviewed him a lot over the years. He hasn't been back on in a while. It's good to speak to him again. He has over 80 million views on his YouTube channel. He's a former Wall Street trader. He worked on the trading floor at Wall Street banks for many years. Also a published author, the Robin Hood of Wall Street, Greg Mannarino. Thank you for joining me again.
Jason, it's great to be back. It's been a really long time, probably way too long. I'm very happy to be here with you.
Yeah, I actually had to take a couple of years off from doing interviews. I was that sick, man. So I was just grinding out just to make a shitty little income. I was grinding out short little videos and writing Patreon articles while I was sick. So I'm feeling a little bit better enough to do, but I still have, as we discussed earlier, a ton of health problems right now. So I'm doing the best I can.
Well, you know what? I wish you the best, and you'll be in my thoughts and prayers.
Thanks, Greg. I appreciate that. And then maybe Greg Hunter will have me on, although I don't like doing video with a webcam. Years ago, he was like trying to force me while I was still working my day job as an investment analyst to go buy a webcam to do an interview on Greg Hunter's USA Watchdog. And my employer was finding out about it and trying to threaten to get my podcast shut down. Yeah, I was getting like daily emails like, we're monitoring your social media and your libertarian tones and criticism of the Fed is inappropriate. And your podcast, why are you doing your podcast when you have a day job as an investment analyst?
Right.
Yeah, and then I was fired within a year.
Yeah, it's tough when you're out here trying to say, look, people don't want the truth out there. You know this better than anybody else. You start, floating out truth bombs, and then all of a sudden you're public enemy number one. I'm clearly public enemy number one, and I'm happy to have that title. I'm out here twice a day. Just telling people the way it is, at least from my perspective, whether they agree with me or not, whatever it may be, I personally don't care. I just, I come out here and I shoot hard and fast, and a lot of people can't handle it. But the truth of the matter is, I think people are starting to wake up. People are seeing what's going on. Stuff that you and I have spoke about from years ago is actually happening. I think, at least I would hope that, more people are understanding the situation, how dire it is. You can tell this by watching the propaganda ministry. They're trying to convince people of one thing. And the more that they sell those lies on the programs, on the television, the more we know that we're saying the right things. So, hopefully we can gather more people together that understand what's actually going on, keeping themselves on the right side of this freaking thing that's happening around us. And that's it. That's what I'm all about. That's what you're about too. I thank goodness that there are people like you still out here trying to get the message out. I urge people every freaking day, get this stuff out there. Where are you going to hear this stuff from? I think people like you and me are on borrowed time, bro. They're gonna ban us. I'm shocked that every day I get out and look for my channel to be shut down. I've gotten warnings. I've gotten videos, monitored and all kinds of stuff, hate mail, death threats, and I'm still out here. And so are you.
I think what the average person doesn't understand is that a lot of the people on Wall Street at the banks, the hedge funds, like off the record privately, they agree with a lot of the criticisms about the Federal Reserve Bank. They don't like the Federal Reserve Bank. They can't speak about it publicly when they go on CNBC or Bloomberg News or in a newsletter or on business television. They can't harshly criticize the Fed because then you're risking getting fired and blacklisted. It's career suicide. It's been this way really since 2008, 2009 to go on business television and criticize the Fed for quantitative easing and printing money. I mean, look, Peter Schiff was doing it for a while on CNBC, criticizing the Fed, and then all of a sudden he made some enemies and he's not back on there.
Oh, absolutely. I used to be friends with several of the regular commentators on CNBC. We used to talk all the time. I have become absolutely radioactive. I haven't heard from any of these people. One of them I spoke to I can't mention names here, but a very popular guest on CNBC, one guy I actually respect. Him and I used to talk almost every day. And up until maybe 2 years ago, and then I became radioactive. I mean, just like cut it off. And, my channel is gaining subscribers and I'm making a noise. And, I can't be the guy that these mainstream guys are talking to, because if it gets out there, it's over. Their careers are over. So they protect themselves that way. And that's okay. Look, I think people are shying away from the mainstream propaganda, bullshit, dog shit, and they're looking for alternative sources where they're going to get the truth. People know the truth when they hear it. That's a statement I got right from Greg Hunter. It always stuck with me. Greg said to me one time, Greg, you know what? People know the truth when they hear it. And I totally agree with that. So when people hear you and me talk and as opposed to, let's say, one of these talking heads on the mainstream, they know what's going on. I think people realize that these people must toe the line. They're there. They're getting paid, probably exorbitant salaries to sit there and mostly just, say what they're expected to say. Me, I just come out and I tell people the way it is, like you did. And that's, I think, what sets us apart. It's like, I don't have a filter. I don't want to have a filter. If people can't handle my style or your style, then just don't watch. But the fact of the matter is, I think people appreciate this more than ever. Especially in this environment of fakery, lies, deceit, distractions. It's so freaking out of control. So, I really believe that the alternative media is what we really are. We're making a difference. And I'll be honest with you, Jason, like since I started out here, I just want people to be aware of what's going on. I really don't care about anything else. I want people to raise their awareness. I want people to talk about what's happening amongst each other and then come up with their own conclusions. Look, just because I'm sitting here and I'm, saying whatever I'm saying in any given video, I want people to always do their due diligence, always do their own homework, look up the things I'm talking about. Am I making sense to you? That's another thing. People like you and I, we don't connect with everyone because people are just so used to being lied to on an unprecedented scale since they're born. You hit people with a little bit of truth and they hate your guts for it. Anyway, that's how we're making a difference, bro, because the more people that hate us, the more trolls that we get, the more flack that we get, we're over the target.
Amen. That's a good rant. So I want to ask you a question that no one will ask you. No one asks anyone on CNBC or elsewhere, because the large banks are the advertisers, the fund managers, the large pools of capitals, the large asset managers are paying for the advertising on CNBC and Bloomberg News a lot. So you worked on Wall Street trading floors, on the trading floors, in the trading pits. Did you witness a lot in your career, a lot of market manipulation, a lot of games? And it seems that the games probably increased as new technology increased and became more sophisticated, so the average person couldn't follow it with these high frequency trading algorithms. So did you see a lot of large market manipulation on a large scale by these large banks or hedge funds?
Well, let me say this. Look, it's no secret now. I think if I've talked about this in the past. Look, I myself at that time did get involved in some activity that maybe wasn't exactly on the straight and narrow. Everyone was doing it. Everyone was doing it. So, everything was paper then, dude. I was a kid. Everything was paper. There was none of this, everything was handed back and forth between each other. And you knew, for example, when large orders were coming in and, people would jump in front of this stuff. So look, it was rampant back then. It's rampant now. If anyone doesn't understand that, I think they all do. I would be, again, more than willing to go out on a limb here and say that people that follow our work are well aware of the rigging, the manipulation, the jawboning, the fact that how many so far, Federal Reserve, the presidents, and even the vice chair himself, the last one, got caught red-handed insider trading. All they get to do is resign and keep all their ill-gotten gains. This charade that Fed President Bullard pulled off just yesterday, causing the stock market to reverse in full, like the Dow is down 600 points. Look, people are making money here. No one can tell me that Fed President Bullard isn't having someone short that market, or maybe he's doing it himself through some backdoor channel and made millions. Then he gets caught.
Or selling the information to hedge funds ahead of time. Yeah, or his friends at a bank.
Absolutely, this is what they're doing. It's been going. Look. I was a kid back then, and I just thought, hey, well, this is pretty cool. Let me, everyone's doing it. So how are people going to get in trouble? It's just insane.
Did anyone even get? Sorry to interrupt you, Greg. Back then, did anyone even get fined or fired for doing anything like that?
Well, I kind of got swept up in that that whole thing over there. That's really the main reason why I unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, kind of stopped working over there. I was actually acting at that time as a broker, although I had no license. Okay, and it wasn't just me; everyone was doing it. You were working under so-and-so and you were over there trying to, broker deals and sell stock and stuff. I wasn't legally allowed to do that. On top of that, I was privy to information that, people, especially at my rank at that time, really shouldn't have been. And what that does, honestly, especially to someone, like I said, I was a kid back in my early 20s at this point. I'm 57 years old now, but looking back on it, I wouldn't do the things I did then. Like I said, everyone was doing it. You'd go out at night and all the traders would like hang out together and we talk about, what we did. And it was very open. I mean, a lot of this stuff wasn't even hidden, Jason, back then. It was just done in the open. People, front running was what everybody did.
And if you hear, sorry to interrupt you again, and I want to add to your points here, if you go back and look at the transcripts from the trial of the precious metal market manipulation that occurred in Chicago with these young floor traders, similar in your position from decades ago when you were a young floor trader, they said the exact same things, that there was enormous pressure from their managers. Their managers didn't tell them not to front run trades or do market manipulation or discuss with other traders at other banks how to manipulate the market. They said they were coached by their higher ups, by more experienced traders, by their managers how to do it because it was easy money.
That's exactly what happened to me. And not only that, this was so big. Okay. This was so big. You had people from other banks, other young guys here, calling and this is going on here. And in an hour, this is going to happen. And then, there was enormous amounts of money just passing around and no one seemed to really give a damn about it. And like I said, it was very open. It wasn't, everybody knew who was doing what because everybody was doing it. Everybody was doing it. It was like a free-for-all on an unprecedented scale. And then for me personally, what ended up happening is, I got involved with some people over there that didn't like the fact that a guy like myself was maybe making more money than they would and not the straight and narrow way. So apparently what happened is me and a bunch of other guys, all of a sudden, we just got let go. It was like, okay, there was no legal issue. They couldn't do anything to us. We were basically untouchable because why? Here we are working as being allowed to work as brokers. Okay. But without a license, how do they justify that? So they just brushed it under the rug like everything else here. And if, like I said, this stuff, there's no doubt. And I know everybody knows what's going on. It's still a free fall over there, although they do it a different way now. It's not as easy, obviously, as it was back then. But it's just, this whole thing is just so out of control right now. And the money that's being made here illegally and every other which way is it's gone completely crazy. There's nothing today anymore is number one is by accident. And I think that right now it's a free for all for people who work on Wall Street. I don't really have any contacts anymore. I used to talk to people at all the big banks. I'm not lying. I had friends at all these banks. Honestly, I haven't talked to any of these guys in a very long time. So I have no idea what these people are doing. I know what they were doing.
Well, it's gotten more sophisticated with the high frequency trading algorithms, right? So you have the situation where the Robinhood app or these other free trading, zero commission trading apps for the retail trader. And that's how the front running occurs. It's via the high frequency trading algorithms now. So they're selling your data so they can front run easily just with a program. They don't even need human beings as program now to manipulate.
Well, yeah, it's very, very sophisticated. These programs that they run now, let's say, for example, they know a big trade goes through. What these people are doing is they're putting their servers right at the exchanges. Okay. So what happens is let's say a big order for a stock XYZ is about to go through. So as soon as it's picked up by whatever the algorithm is or however it works, I have no clue. Because their servers now are so close to the exchange, they actually front run it that way. They jump in front of the trade by nanoseconds. So, and this is going on. It's been going on for a very, very long time. I mean, you want to talk about sophisticated front running. This is going on like absolute wildfire. You can't, there's no one unless, and I don't know that this is true, but it may be, you got the dark pools here. And I think it may be a little more difficult to front run trades through the dark pool. But from what I understand, it's very simple now. If you are trading across a regular exchange for these algorithms to jump in front of your trade, just like people did with paper back in my time, now they're doing it in nanoseconds, and they're doing this in millions of times a day. So even if they're picking up pennies, you do this a million times a day and you're earning 10, 20, 25 cents on it, however they're working at doing it. Let's say per week they're doing, I don't know, 100 million trades, this electronic front running. Could you imagine the amount of money that's being made here? It's like running a casino that just doesn't lose. And unfortunately, this is going on and people have no idea at all. So I'm really happy you did bring this up, because I don't think anyone has this. People hear the term, high frequency trading, whatever. They have no idea what it means. And what it means is these trades are going on at a high rate of frequency, and they're being utilized to front run trades where they're making very small amounts of money over millions and millions and millions of trades. So this comes out to be millions and millions and millions and tens of millions of dollars. And in my opinion, it should be illegal, but it's not. And even if it were, it's so sophisticated, they wouldn't even be able to tell what's going on here. And even if they were too, people are getting paid off. There's always somebody getting paid off. These regulating bodies, does anyone think that these people are doing their job really? How about no?
I agree that they're getting paid off. Actually, that's funny you bring it up. I was going to bring this up. I don't know if you saw it, but the CEO and chairman of the board of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, which is in charge of like commodities and options trading, he actually went on Tucker Carlson live on Fox News to talk about the FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried. And he actually had a Freudian slip on live TV. He admitted he was bribing the regulators.
Of course he is, dude. This has been going on forever. The financial system is so twisted and sick. Like if people really I'm so happy we're actually doing this, because what we're talking about here, no one's talking about it. So people who have the opportunity to listen to this interview here, they're probably learning things they never heard before. And, it's usually generally with me, it's the same kind of questions. This is why I hardly ever do interviews anymore. I get interview requests constantly, and I turn them down, because people don't ask me anything like you just did. These are great questions, and it's interesting covering this stuff, because I'm kind of frankly sick of talking about the other stuff.
Well, I like drawing from people's experience. So your experience was on the trading floor, right? So you just talking about how technology has changed and market manipulation. I mean, I've heard stories from traders over the years about market manipulation and stuff like that, but it seems it's just the manipulations have gotten more sophisticated. Look at the Robinhood app. Their entire business model was selling all the customer data to those hedge funds and citadels that make billions of dollars front running all the trades, because they don't charge the retail trader zero commission trades. So you are the product. They're selling all of your data for enormous profits to these hedge funds.
Absolutely. Really, there's nothing in life that's free, man. There's always a cost and a price to pay for it. And everyone right now is out for themselves. It's and it really is a complete, absolute free for all. It just doesn't stop. And this is, again, why I think anybody who's out here trying to make an honest living in this market is at an incredible disadvantage these days. And I think it's going to get progressively worse moving forward here. It really is. I don't even swing trade anymore. I'm mostly putting my money to work in large cap, dividend paying companies, ETFs, stuff like that. I can't, first of all, I'm too old. It's a young man's game. I can't be sitting in front of my computer looking at every tick that goes by. I just can't, honestly, I just can't do it anymore. So, but with that said, it's very difficult these days for people in this market, especially because there's such corruption at such an incredible level. And I don't see it getting any better anytime soon until this whole freaking shithouse comes down, and it's going to. I think that's an absolute fact, just a matter of when. And I don't even think about timing it. All I do, which is something I've been doing since forever, is just follow the money. We'll look at the action in the debt market mostly. I came up with a neat little indicator called the MMRI, Mannarino Market Risk Indicator, which measures risk. It's free. I don't charge even a cent for it. It's right on my website, traderschoice.net. People can watch the action in the debt market. It's color coded. There's a number there, and it allows people to gauge risk in the market. And I think what we're seeing lately, I mean, risk in the market is obviously, for this whole thing is fiction, and you've got central banks continuing to buy it all. It's out of control here. Keep trying to maintain the illusion of stability here in the debt market when the whole thing is just a ticking time bomb ready to go off. It's going to go off. When? Who freaking knows, bro?
Yeah, we're being lied to and gaslighted on a constant basis. So the narrative is that these central banks are all raising interest rates, reducing their balance sheet. But meanwhile, a couple months ago, within a 48-hour period, all these UK pension funds, the banks, the insurance companies, the reinsurance companies, all these entities that were connected to the pension funds that loaned them money or were involved with the banks with loaning to the pension funds for these leverage hedge fund trades, they were about to blow up. I heard from someone who spoke to DC Fed people off the record, there was $600 billion in bailout money given out to the Bank of England and to the pension funds. Otherwise, you would have had failures of pension funds in 48 hours in England. So, and the Fed's balance sheet didn't grow at all. It continues, the number they give us publicly continues to be reduced.
It's a joke. Exactly. What I want to see is the Fed's off balance sheet or their secondary or their non-public balance sheet. This is where all the cash is that's being dispersed all over the world to fund this, to fund that, to do this and do that. But no one's privy to that information, not even the president of the United States. And it's
compartmentalized. Greg, you were in the military. It's compartmentalized at the Fed too. There's people aren't aware of this. We only know this because Danielle DiMartino Booth, who was at the Dallas Fed for 9 years, she actually disclosed this publicly in interviews and in her book. There's top secret security clearance levels at the Fed. So they have the information like in the military or at an intelligence agency. The information at the Federal Reserve Bank is compartmentalized too. So if your security clearance is high enough, you won't even know what the Fed's balance sheet is or what the bailouts and all those things are.
Absolutely, 100% true. I mean, it's a huge secret, and I can't believe that there are people who still actually have any kind of faith in this system. Look, the people that follow my work, they know that I probably despise central banking and central bankers more than any other person on the face of the earth. I mean, I talk about it all the time. I try to expose what's going on here, and I think people get it. I really do. But they're like, what are we going to do about it? The fact of the matter is we have a web of central banks around the world working in concert right now to deliberately destroy the economy, kill the consumer here. They're working very hard to fulfill their end game, to be the lenders and buyers of last resort, buy it all. And it sounds like a science fiction movie, but these entities are now and have become world control, or the governments of the world. The rest of it is nothing but a sideshow act. It's just a charade. It's theater for the people. No one has really any clue, other than the people that maybe follow our work, as to what's actually going on. And it's astonishing to me how people are not revolting. Again, what did we just find out? The Pentagon, at least $220 billion just missing. It's vanished. Well, the last time I recall that the Pentagon losing money was $3 trillion. And then I think the next day the towers got hit. And then, focus on this, don't look over at that. This whole thing, that's how it works. It's insane. The people are strung along and they constantly will be. It's never going to change. And unfortunately, we got what we need to do is raise people's awareness to the point where they say, I've had enough. And there's just unfortunately not enough of us, man. We need legions of people. I've been urging people. Every week I write a piece and I put it out in my free newsletter. And I've been telling people, I said, feel free to share this any way you want to. YouTubers, people like yourself, read this stuff out there. It's stuff where people are not going to find out anywhere else. Just like this blog, like you're amazing. The questions you're asking and how on top of it you are. Anyway, I appreciate you very much.
So I think this is an important thing. The narrative right now that Wall Street, that the PhD economists, the Federal Reserve Bank are saying is that inflation is peaked, inflation is over. We have to prepare for deflation. Meanwhile, if you're here in reality, I know you run a small business, you're a trader and investor too. If you're running a small business, I mean, everyone's costs are up. So that you have people on business television and people with enormous Twitter followings and financial Twitter saying inflation has peaked. I don't know who pays their bills. I don't know who goes grocery shopping for them. Maybe it's their butler. Maybe it's their butler or one of their sugar babies or something like that. But I just don't understand anyone saying that inflation has peaked. I mean, if the Fed continues to raise interest rates, we're going to see a lot of bankruptcies. We're going to see a lot of problems. There's going to be less supply soon. Then there may be a temporary deflation, but in this fiat currency system, and you've talked about this on Greg Hunter interviews, Greg, that the entire system is basically a Ponzi scheme where the debt has to keep growing. I don't see them allowing deflation without changing the rules or some type of system reset.
No, absolutely. The end game here is pretty simple here. We are eventually, and again, people ask me all the time when. I don't know when. Personally, I don't even care when. But this debt market is going to implode on itself here. It can't be constantly fueled because it must be fueled greater and greater and greater exponentially just to keep it functioning. That's the nature of how the system works. At one point here, we are going to get a meltdown in the debt market. Currencies themselves also being units of debt. This whole thing is going to melt down, and it's not going to be by any accident whatsoever. We're going to see bond yields around the world spike in an unbelievably uncontrolled fashion as everyone runs for the door at the same time. Again, not by accident. This is going to destroy the equity markets of the world, stock markets, and cash, in my opinion, is going to move into commodities. I've been explaining this to people, and I think the price of resources are going to be unattainable for people. So people just believe maybe that the whole system we have functions because people believe it's going to continue functioning that way, but they're not looking further down the road, realizing, and they should at least, that this whole thing is so grossly out of control. I mean, look at this whole thing with the debt limit here. We just maxed out our credit card yet again, and without borrowing more, the whole system just stops. And that's also something that I believe is going to happen. I've been telling people forever is we're going to get a global credit freeze. Everything's going to lock up. No transactions, everything's going to stop. And again, I believe this is also moving us towards a completely new system. The current system it's really on life support. And we can see this by ballooning debt and what central banks are doing right now to try to keep the system afloat. It can only go so far. And then all of a sudden it's just going to end, but fast. It's going to catch everyone by surprise. There are tells, there are ways that we can follow it by looking at the money. What's the debt market doing? The debt market is the driver of everything else. And I've said many, many times that people need to think of it in these kind of terms is if you look at the stock market itself or any other asset, it derives value from action in the debt market. So everything is a derivative as to what's occurring in the debt market. So when that debt market implodes, it's going to change the face and the landscape of the entire world, not just the financial system. Everything is going to change.
And I think they've had to do even more economic propaganda, gaslighting, lies. So you talked earlier about off balance sheet with the Fed, the special purpose vehicles. As of March 2020, Jim Bianco Research wrote a Bloomberg op-ed piece talking about how the U.S. Treasury had legalized off balance sheet special purpose vehicles similar to Enron for the Federal Reserve Bank. So they can work together to move things off balance sheet and not tell the public what's actually on so their balance sheet is fake. I think they're going to have to do even more of this with hidden bailouts, balance sheets. It seems to me, Greg, that this economic data that we get with the inflation numbers, I call the CPI, the Changing Propaganda Index, or CPI, the GDP now. I mean, the GDP is so reliant. It's based on a base effect. So it's assuming a much lower inflation rate. It's counting 50% of government spending as positive for the economy when the government has so much control over spending in the economy. And then the jobs report, we've seen whistleblowers come out saying that Biden had the jobs report fake, but I mean, like other administrations have done that too. So all this economic data that people are relying on for decisions like jobs reports, GDP, inflation, they're all fake now. And it seems like it's getting worse to like Soviet Union levels or Chinese Communist Party levels of propaganda.
Absolutely. Goldman Sachs, and did you catch the article? I think it was CNBC. Goldman Sachs came out, it's saying that the data is quote unquote inaccurate, meaning it's fake. And then just this morning, when they released the first time unemployment report, one of the commentators on Bloomberg, Michael something or other, he almost fell over. He said, this does not look accurate. Okay, so all the data is 100% fake. It's all propaganda. It's all, meant to bring about some kind of a response. I don't know. I guess they believe people are buying it. And I know for a fact that people that follow my work, and I'm certain yours too, do not buy a damn thing. I even hate talking about it. Like, for example, like a piece of economic news comes out. I hate mentioning it because it has no bearing on reality. Nothing has a bearing on reality anymore. The whole entire system is not real. It's not on the elemental chart. It's just based on debt, which must constantly be inflated upon. It can't stop. And it's just going to continue this way until there's a full-on implosion of the system. And they know that. And this is why I really believe that, we're going to see some more incredible things like you're talking about right here. All this off-balance sheet stuff, I get even a lot worse than it is right now. The Fed's repo program that's going to keep going up too, 2.5 trillion, 3 trillion, 4 trillion. It's going to, they're trying to fake liquidity in a system that's clearly, drying up. Liquidity is drying up. And the only way to keep it functioning is to keep fueling it. They can't stop. If people were told this stuff, could you imagine for a nanosecond that this interview was on at one single mainstream channel? They would take that. They wouldn't even allow us to talk for 5 minutes.
Oh, you'll get cut off right away if you talk about how there's New York Fed disclosures, thanks to Dodd-Frank, how the 2019 repo madness crisis, the bailouts, and we found this out from public disclosure documents. Probably the only good thing about Dodd-Frank was that the New York Fed every 2 or 3 years has to disclose things later on. We found out from some information, the bailouts were around 48 trillion. Just in 2019 for the repo crisis. So there was Japanese investment banks, European investment banks, family offices, hedge funds. The entire risk parity trade was leveraged up on the bond trades, Greg, and betting on principal gains on the bonds while Jerome Powell was raising interest rates and reducing the Fed's balance sheet prior to 2020 during the last rate hiking cycle. It blew up. And I think we may have something repeat soon as the Fed continues to raise interest rates.
Oh, dude. Yes, we haven't seen anything yet. All this stuff you're talking about and more, much more is going to happen as they continue to fuel this Ponzi, this thing, this whatever it is we're in right now. It's going to get.
You've talked about this on Greg Hunter interviews. It's basically a fiat currency and credit Ponzi scheme. So where the currency supply has to grow, the debt has to grow. It doesn't make any sense from a math standpoint because the U.S. is going to be paying. Raising interest rates about $1 trillion per year in interest payments. It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make it. And it's not sustainable. They know it's not sustainable, but they're selling a lie. Okay, don't worry about it. Everything's going to be fine. Look at the debt market. It looks good right now. I mean, this nothing else matters anymore. Forward guidance, PE ratios, and their earnings. It's all about what they can do and manage to manipulate the market and rig the market. It's not real. None of it is real.
So if there's this much distortions and manipulations, economic propaganda, lies, spin, all companies for years in Silicon Valley, a lot of these Silicon Valley companies were able to get away with accounting fraud for 10, 15 years. They created their own accounting metrics. There was no one looked at actual fundamentals with profit margins, earnings, free cash flow, balance sheet. People didn't look at that stuff for years because they assumed that these Silicon Valley companies could grow revenue and keep raising capital. It was basically a Ponzi scheme in Silicon Valley with a lot of these companies where as long as the share price went up, they could just sell more capital and grow revenues, but no one talked about fundamentals. So you think that's coming to an end?
What I want people to do, everyone that's watching, listening to this right now, is go watch The Smartest Guys in the Room, the story of Enron, okay? The world has become Enron. The world has become Enron. Everything that Enron was doing, okay, the largest corporate bankruptcy in the history of the world, that was what we're seeing here on a macro scale, on a global scale right now, all the fake accounting, all the nonsense that's going on here. So everyone out here who's listening to this right now, go out there and watch the smartest guys in the room, and you will see exactly the parallels that are going on with the world right now, and how Enron went down, the fastest collapse ever in corporate history. This was a multi-billion-dollar company that went to nothing, literally overnight.
Look at FTX, right? Isn't FTX, was FTX publicly traded though? Their share, I think their shares were private.
Yeah. But yes, these kinds of things, we're going to see more of it. I mean, could you imagine? You ever watch the show American Greed? I love watching that show because you can see how easy it is for people to be duped. And that's what's happening right now. The world, except for people like you and me and the people that follow our work, are being duped. They have no idea what's coming down the pike, other than the people that do follow our work. Most people, honestly, they can't walk and chew gum at the same time. They walk through time and space not knowing who they are, what they're doing. They just know that they have to move from point A to point B to collect X amount of fiat dollars, which they don't even own. These are IOUs, as you well know, owed back to the central bank plus interest they create out of nothing, and they think everything is fine. I say all the time. I said today in my last video, I said our forefathers would be in full revolt right now, but today, silence. That should tell you something.
I think a lot of people actually didn't care. They were dancing as long as the music was playing. They were playing hot chairs or either musical chairs or hot potato. Sorry, I screwed that up. I butchered that. So as long as asset prices were being inflated, so as long as crypto and altcoins were going up, people didn't care about the fundamentals that some of these altcoins or initial coin offerings or NFTs were frauds or garbage.
Sounds like the dot-com bubble. Same thing. When the dot-com and everyone was partying like it was never going to stop. And that's exactly what we are in right now. But right now, what's going on, what makes this a little bit different here is, and it's going to just end a lot worse, is you got all of this other stuff going on that we were just talking about, and central banks who are really, really pulling the strings, pushing the world to a point of implosion right now. They're destroying the entire middle class here, making people on a worldwide scale, making people more dependent on the system. They need more people dependent on the current system. So when the current system fails, they can say, we have something for you. Don't worry, we're going to take care of you. So that's what they're doing now. This new, it's a new feudal system, the extreme haves, extreme have-nots here, people borrowing beyond their eyeballs, personal debt, household debt, consumer debt, credit card debt skyrocketing, the savings rate in the negative. It's all being designed. You see what else is going on lately? You got people getting massive increases in their credit lines from their credit cards without even asking. They want people to go out and borrow. They realize that people are going to be irresponsible with their debt and just going to max out those cards and they can't pay them back. All right. We're already seeing this issue of loan defaults and everything. Why did people think just several weeks ago, this came out that central banks are they're getting a new lifeline to the Fed, like they need a new one. They already have a main line right to the Fed, but they're looking for some other avenue here. Look, I've been telling people for a while, the banks themselves are in trouble, but that means the people are in trouble. No deposits, no loans, no deals. This whole thing really seems to be really on a knife's edge. I don't know how much further it's going to go. I don't even like to think about it. I just watch the debt market every freaking day. And then I see how the stock market responds off of that pretty much.
Small businesses are being targeted too. There's even more draconian rules, regulations, taxes, all these fees that are required. So they're making it even more difficult to either start or maintain a small business unless you have an online business. But I'm sure we'll start seeing new taxes for online businesses that are just online businesses too in the not too distant future. The other thing you brought up, Greg, with debt and interest rates. So it would seem to me we haven't had a crash yet in corporate debt. I think like the earnings for a lot of these large corporations are going to be really bad with higher interest rates because they use so much cheap debt. Since 2008, 2009, a lot of these companies loaded their balance sheet with debt. Now interest rates are higher. They're not going to be able to service their debt. They now that share prices are down, are they going to be able to sell more equity? So it's looking like that's going to be a problem going forward. And then the other one's real estate. So if the Fed keeps raising interest rates, not going to be as many buyers because mortgage prices are high. We may have an enormous real estate crash soon too.
Oh, absolutely. That's definitely all this is true. You're saying, right? It's going to be interesting to see how how it plays out with regard to the corporate debt. I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to renegotiate it. They're going to come up with new terms, or however they're going to work it. With regard to real estate, I think it's pretty much in our face. We're seeing now what's going on here, and I don't think we're done. I have friends of mine in the real estate business who are starving to death right now. They got no deals. They can't do anything. And
are you still in Las Vegas, or are you somewhere else?
No, I'm still in Vegas.
Yeah, so Vegas is very boom bust. So like when interest rates are low and things are doing well, people buy extra like vacation homes or condos or things like that in Vegas, right? So Vegas is kind of like a discretionary.
Yeah, it kind of is, man. It's the truth. It's the truth. And then we got this whole issue with the with Lake Mead out here. It's a big problem.
Oh yeah, it's drying up, right?
It's drying up. It's pretty ugly. I mean, I've seen it in real life. People hear about it, but you go down there and look at it. I was down there just maybe about 6 weeks ago, and I was looking at it going, wow. If people can see this on the ground, I think they'd be a little bit afraid. It definitely put the fear of God in me. I'm like, this is just not good. Well, it doesn't seem like anybody wants to do anything about it. There are so many concurrent crises going on here right now. The world is being pushed in that direction, and people are, like you said, they're dancing like it's like they're on the Titanic, and they're just loving life, and it's just going to change. So we're going to change very fast.
You also had a mass exodus of people leaving California and other states like Illinois, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, high tax, high regulation states, especially during the pandemic, that were crushed even more with draconian lockdown policies. People's financial livelihoods or small businesses were ruined while governments tried to raise taxes more. And they've been leaving and moving to states like southern states or states like Arizona, Texas, and Nevada for years now.
Oh, yeah. We had a massive influx here from people from California. Most of my neighbors were from California. And now people look, it looks like people want to get out of here too. They're looking for other places to go. My home equity went down substantially in the last year. My house is worth about $100,000 less than it was a year ago. And I don't see that ending anytime soon either, unfortunately. But look, everything's coming apart, man. But
as long as you didn't have an adjustable rate mortgage, right? Because the people that were playing the interest rate game based on the Fed and low interest rate policies, people with an adjustable rate mortgage for a number of years, they're doing well. And now with the high rates, now they're going to get screwed.
I've been hearing from people like that too. They're like, oh my God, I'm paying so much more on my mortgage. I can't afford it. Now what am I going to do? And people this is all set up. People are being set up. They're being set up and they're being marched right into the slaughterhouse. And it's just not going to change. I mean, turn off the freaking mainstream propaganda bullshit and just wake the freak up, everybody. Listen to this interview maybe, 3 or 4 times. A lot of stuff we covered here is very, very important. I have to say, this is probably one of the most important interviews I've done in a long time.
I appreciate that. So we discussed a lot of very interesting topics, Greg, a lot of scary stuff. Are you optimistic about anything going forward?
Am I optimistic? I always try to stay. I'm a positive person generally, but I tell you the truth, man, this stuff really does get to me. Just as a case in point, the last video that I did today, I actually had a meltdown. Sometimes, my heart starts pounding, I start sweating. I want to wake people up. I could say this. I think that we're making a difference. We are getting through to people. I believe there's almost like a natural selection process going on here. I'm optimistic that the people who get it, the people that understand what's actually going on, are going to have the best chance of getting through what's coming. And the vast amount of the population of this world has not even the slightest clue. And I believe when this stuff really hits the fan, there's going to be pandemonium in the streets. People need to band together. I'm optimistic that people are going to do that. I think people need to understand, at least from a wealth preservation standpoint, what they should be looking at. I still say commodities. Silver is my favorite asset of all time. Commodities in aggregate in general, I think are going to skyrocket at one point as this whole rest of the system melts down and things get very real. So I think things are going to get a lot worse as we move forward, unfortunately. But my optimism comes from the fact that I think we're making a difference. People like you, I'd like to think people like myself, there's a lot of guys and girls out here on YouTube and other alternative outlets that are really trying to get this message out there. And again, I just want to thank you for having me on, because I think this is really important stuff.
So I'll add some optimism here. I think with the higher interest rates, less capital available for a lot of these corporations in Silicon Valley and other crazy idea projects that have no potential for profits or free cash flow, I think we're going to start focusing on business fundamentals, which means more efficiency. So less waste, fraud, corruption, and abuse. People are going to start asking about profit margins and free cash flow and
the stuff that used to matter.
and a sound balance, because the capital is not going to be available. People are going to be a lot stricter now with the capital and say, well, your business.
And unfortunately, you're right. You are correct about all this, but it's going to get, I mean, you're talking about after this whole thing, the whole madness of it gets real, then of course things are going to change. But, who knows what that means. And what you're talking about is a post almost apocalyptic situation, because that's where it looks like we're going. And then after that, people will rebuild. They always do, generally. So, but I think, unfortunately, this thing is going to really take probably 90% of the population by surprise. And that's not what we want to see. That's why it's so important for people to listen to shows like this, because they're not going to hear this anywhere else. That's the truth.
As a trader, and I know you've been through bull markets and bear markets in the past, how did you manage risk then in something like this, like a stock market crash or other crashes or bear markets that you were through? Did you keep extra cash? Did you keep gold and silver? Did you look for dividend stocks? Did you try to play more defense? Did you try to have more diversification or stop loss limit orders? How did you manage risk then in the past in bear markets?
Nothing like now. First of all, there's nothing coming like we've ever been through before. Right now, I think is a golden opportunity. And I use that term in the literal sense here, to get yourself in the right spots here, having commodities, access to them. In the past here, look, I was a reckless kid for the most of my life, trading in and out of this market, getting in things and quick and out. And so I can't do that anymore. I'm trying to focus more on longer term investments here, something that's going to pay companies that are going to pay me to own them. Watching the market, seeing where it's going here, getting ready to get out at a moment's notice here. I do believe people need some cash around. Obviously, I think I wish people would pull their cash out of the banks in mass. We could turn this around, but people won't do it.
The banks it's like anti-bank run, Greg. So the banks don't even need depositor cash, because the Fed, like with the keyboard now, can just send them new reserves. So they don't even need depositors cash anymore. The banks, like the large banks here in the US compared to other banks in other countries, the large banks make more of their profits, not on loans, but on hedge fund trades. And derivatives trades.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. It's a free for all. It's a madhouse, like we started off with, and we were talking about on an extremely micro scale. But people, if they really knew, and if we really even know, I think we just scratching the surface here as to how actually dark it is. It's very dark.
Well, you just have to look at the derivatives estimates, right? And then there was the Bank of International. We're recording this interview on Thursday, January 19th, 2023. For our listeners out there, a month or so ago, there was that report from the Bank of International Settlements, the scary total amounts of dollar-denominated debt floating around between 65 trillion and 80 trillion. That's way more than a lot of these countries. They don't have those types of dollars. And yet, why did they borrow so much in dollars and do all these crazy sophisticated forwards and swaps and stuff like that? And it seems like these were all Ponzi scheme games, Greg, to prevent a collapse post 2008, 2009, bias with these 15 years, along with the Fed doing bailouts and zero interest rate policy.
Absolutely. All they've done is made all that much worse. Everything you just spoke about is much, much worse today. There's no comparison to how bad it must. If we really knew, but we'll never know. We could sit here and speculate and talk about it, but it's another one of those things. That's just gone completely insane, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And I'm sure it's not too far off, but I don't know when. I don't want to think about it. Don't want people to ask me when. I just follow the money. Just watch the debt market. It makes it very, very simple.
Do you think then that Felix Zulauf, the guy who is on Barron's Roundtable, famous money manager, managed billions of dollars, he said in a recent interview that it's going to be roller coaster volatility with asset prices and things going up and down based on all the different announcements that the central banks and governments might make. So you expect something like that where it's going to be like a vomit-inducing roller coaster type of scenario.
Well, you mean that we're talking about the markets or the debt market or everything in aggregate? I mean,
it might be all these where all the asset classes could have record amounts of volatility. So stocks, bonds, currencies, commodities. I mean, the natural gas price, Greg, in just the last 2 months, I think it's down 50%. It's below the cost of production now for natural. So that's looking like risk reward, like an interesting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We are seeing some of that kind of crazy volatility here. But I think. What I look at, like, I'm really a big macro guy. So I look and I say, okay, what is the debt market telling me today? Okay, that's why I created the MMRI. Okay, what is it saying to me? Am I seeing uncontrolled risk here? Is it moderating? Several months ago, we had a roller coaster ride in the U.S. 10-year yield bond, global bond yields rising and falling, and the stock market was also following, rising and falling like a freaking roller coaster here. But with wild swings in any, let's say, in natural gas or whatever, a lot of that is obviously being driven by crazy speculation, which is so it always gets like that. What drives the market? Fear and greed. Okay, fear is stronger when people, and then with this whole big deal, I'm glad you brought that up too, with regard to natural gas here. I think it's probably at this point way oversold. I'm not telling people to jump in and go buy this stuff. But generally, when you see it drop that big in a short period of time, it may be time to think about getting on the opposite side of that.
Well, I'll tell you what I think happened. So I think it was a combination of factors. So there was an enormous amount of leverage on the long side in the futures market. But then there was the weather report that people were saying, but that wasn't it. I think like back in August, September, October, the Chinese government, they had stockpiled an enormous amount of liquefied natural gas. They sent most of those tankers to the European Union for enormous profits. They got over 100% profit selling that natural gas to Europe, to Germany and other European Union countries at sky high prices. And so they dumped a ton of supply back onto the market. And then I think the Chinese government went short the natural gas futures market and they made a profit there too. And I think they're rebuying now.
Sounds logical to me, man. Nothing would surprise me, bro.
Well, I've had an off-the-record conversation with a retired Chinese banker in China still, who told me that they do this shit, that they've done stuff like this in the commodities markets in different commodities over the years. So it kind of played out over the last 4 or 5 months, basically like this guy has described what they've done in the past. Imagine
my surprise. Imagine how shocked I am. No. Of course, nothing was surprising. No, absolutely nothing. We'll see, bro.
And that was natural gas that Putin couldn't sell to Europe, right? Because the pipelines had blown up with Nord Stream, so Putin couldn't sell it. So Putin couldn't sell it because they were saying, "Oh, the Ukraine war, we're not going to buy natural gas from you." So Putin's like, "Oh, we'll just sell it to the Chinese." So he sold it to the Chinese, and then the Chinese said, "Oh, the natural gas price is too high. We're going to cash out. We're going to sell it at a big profit." And then they resold the natural gas to the Europeans who wouldn't buy it from Russia.
Isn't that just lovely? Yes, sounds about right to me, bro.
Sounds like inefficient and broken markets, but it's the politicians and the central bankers that are causing the problems.
Always the same story. Always the same story.
Well, Greg, I've kept you for over 50 minutes. I really enjoyed our discussion. Thank you for being candid about your experience trading. I think it's going to help our listeners out a lot. I mean, the banks pay, let's be honest here, the banks, the hedge fund managers that get caught with market manipulation. You're not seeing Stevie Cohen, Mr. Big Shot hedge fund manager with many billions of dollars. Well, he had FDA employees on his payroll. He was getting drug approval notices months in advance. So he would set up his options trades and stock trades. He's not going to prison. I mean, he paid a tiny fine. He got to buy the Mets. So, I mean, these big shots are all doing market manipulation and getting away with it, basically. Maybe they pay a fine.
They pay a fine, but it's baked in. They know already. They know they're going to get caught. And so they can just pay, just like the big banks. They know they can get caught. They pay a fine. They don't admit guilt, which is the best part of it. And they just move. And they just move forward.
Yeah, it was just ridiculous. I'm sure you looked at the evidence that came out over the summer with the precious metal market manipulation trial and all the evidence and discovery. And it was insane amounts of emission of market manipulation. And two tiny little traders got in trouble, 2 or 3 guys. Of
course. That's always the same, man. Yeah, it's these guys. It's nobody, no managers. They had no idea.
Yeah, and then the bank paid a tiny fine, and they had billions of dollars in profits. And then the large banks that are the bullion banks get to change the rules and all these other market manipulations and schemes on the COMEX with gold and silver futures contracts. And then they get to change. I think they paid a fine like 8 years ago to the CFTC because they had fraudulent data that they gave to the CFTC about what was in inventory. It was a couple $1 million fine, and that was it. The FTC said, "Oh, large banks, the bullion banks, all your data is fraudulent, but it's only a couple $1 million fine. No one's going to prison or anything."
Yep, it's always the same, bro. It's never going to change.
Well, I really enjoyed our discussion today, Greg. I'll attach links to your website, traderschoice.net. You also have a free newsletter, right, on your Substack and then your Twitter, if you want to plug that.
Yeah, I don't do Twitter anymore. They banned me.
Oh, I didn't know that. I follow so many people on Twitter.
Yeah. I'm nowhere, bro. I'm on my website, on my Substack, and that's pretty much it. And Steam it. That's it. So I'm on in any social network, man. And it's very rare to have someone like myself not do that, but I like it this way.
Okay, well, keep up the good work, Greg. I really appreciate our time
Thank
today.
you too, bro. Great talking to you.